Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, joined by Mark Ostrander. Grant Turner is coming back from Oslo. Did a great job over there. We are brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and sponsored by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Mark, how you doing?
Good. How are you, David?
I'm good. If you're Besides wrestling, I think October is the best month of the year to be a sports fan. You got pro football, you got college football, you got baseball playoffs. Like you walk into a sports bar, MMA is usually on. Crazy weekend this weekend in college football. Alabama loses. And then the big game, which obviously had some connotations to wrestling, Iowa beats Penn State. It was number 3 against number 4. And at the same time, Iowa gets commitments from Jessaroga and Riggins. So if people don't understand that, those are 2 big commits. I mean, I think Iowa was the leader in the clubhouse with those guys. I think that's how a lot of schools are. Maybe we can start there with recruiting, or if you have a great program in state, it's cheaper to go to school in state than out of state. And it's usually an easier acclimation process for a kid because it's got friends and family a lot closer.
Sure. And, taking having recruits come in during a big football game is always probably fun for the kids, seeing the crowds, 70,000 people in the stands, but it can backfire if you get your butt kicked, just like we all know. And, it's not so much fun then. So, but they happen to win, all the fans rush the field. I'm sure there's going to be a nice fine by the Big Ten or NCAA for that. I don't think Iowa cares right now. Then they moved up to number 2 in the rankings for football. And I can't even remember the last time Iowa was ranked ahead of Alabama, which is, I'm not sure, it's been a long time. So kudos to the Iowa football program. But to have, those kids down there on a recruiting visit, David, and we both coached and we had recruiting visits. Obviously, we didn't bring them in for a football game or anything like that. Because,
I'm laughing.
200 people, 200 or 300 people in the stands at, junior college football games probably. So I think our wrestling team brought in about the same amount of fans when we were pretty good at one time. So, but besides that, those are 2 young men that have got tons of talent. They've got credentials, and I think they're going to fit into a program where, after this year, Iowa's going to need some young people coming up and stepping in. And I think Tom and Terry are starting to build for that. I think this is what they were looking for. And they know it's going to be a little while. They probably know they're going to have a 2 or 3 year transition, but then they're going to be really good again. And
I don't think they think that way. I think these kids out, next man up. I'm with you, much more realistic. These guys don't have to all be superstars right away. But I think a friend of ours, Jim Ziegler, one time said to me, the coach at Northwest College, junior college, Merrimack was always a team that took like somewhere between, 8th and 20th. And then we started doing well. And you start paying attention to the team scores. When you're 8th or 20th, it's like you just worried about your kids. You're not really worried about the team part of it. You just want your kids to do the best they can. If they're winning by 7, you're not pushing them to get majors. You just be smart, win your match. And he goes, once you get to that level, he goes, it's really hard to go back. So I think obviously Iowa, those guys, there's a winning culture there. Morningstar obviously is a great recruiter. It's interesting. The only knock I think anybody from Iowa has on the Iowa team is that there's hardly anybody on the team from Iowa, right? Like if you go up and down the lineup, like Spencer's from Pennsylvania, DeSantos from Pennsylvania, Jaden's from Missouri, Murin's from Pennsylvania, Turk's from Illinois, Caleb Young is Pennsylvania, Marinelli's Ohio, Kemmer's Pennsylvania, Nelson Brands is Iowa, Assad is Illinois, depending on who they start, Warner's Illinois, and Cassiope's Illinois. So literally, if Nelson Brands doesn't start, they don't have a starter from Iowa. And like in Missouri, when Mizzou was really good the first time, it was like Askren and Pell and those guys, and they weren't Missouri natives, but nobody cared. Like they embraced them, and Iowa certainly embracing those guys too. But I think they hug them a little harder if they're also from right down the road.
Sure.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there's going to be, and Iowa has, in the last few years, David, has become extremely important in high school wrestling countrywide. Iowa was always probably 8th, 9th, 10th best in this country when it came to just high school wrestling, because you could name, 9 or 10 teams that, states that were a lot better, that were doing better, just by the numbers, who was getting recruited to Division I, who was placed in Division I nationals. There weren't a lot of Iowa kids there. And I think you're going to see with the clubs that have started in the state of Iowa, I think you're going to see Iowa kids starting to do much better on that platform. And Iowa's doing what they need to do. They're getting those kids in their room. Some of the best are going to the University of Iowa. So, and I'm sure Iowa State's trying to do the same thing.
It's your point about the level of high school wrestling in any state impacting the college programs cannot be understated. There were some years where Oklahoma State wasn't as good. I think they took like 14th one year, and there weren't that many Oklahoma recruits that panned out or were super high level coming out that you wanted to take a chance on. And there's a big difference in that, because without getting into the technical side of scholarships, which I'm a dork and I could do that, and I think people aren't as interested in that as I am, it costs less to go in state. You can maybe get 2 to 2.5 kids for the price of one out-of-state kid.
Yep.
And nobody bats 1,000 on recruiting on, hey, I project Mark Ostrander to be a national champ, and he is. I projected David Mirikitani to be a national champ, and he wasn't. You don't know, right? Like those are just things. So it's important, like those guys winning junior duels and the winners win shirts, that was really important to them. And, I don't want to name one club in Iowa because there's a lot of them, but you're right, as the clubs build up. The other thing that happens is the ability to go to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club and the Cyclone Wrestling Club RTCs at 250-mile radius. Like the University of Pennsylvania literally is posting a picture with Brandon Slay and Mark Hall and Jordan Burroughs. Like it literally says, if you live within 250 miles of us, you need to come see us. 250 miles are really, like for me, that's St. Louis to Kansas City. It might be pretty close, St. Louis to Des Moines, but there's people that'll drive that far, maybe stay a night or two overnight, get 3 practices in and drive back. So anyway, congrats to Iowa wrestling team. I don't root for football teams except when one team has wrestling and one team doesn't, because they make money.
Sure. Give me your opinion.
I rooted for Oklahoma real quick in the Red Rivalry. Super happy Oklahoma beat Texas. So all right, go ahead.
Give me your opinion. In the last 5 years, our youth wrestling in the United States, and I'm talking starting at middle school, high school, has improved dramatically. Would you agree or disagree? The level of talent that's coming out.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for years.
Sure. And this isn't, David, this isn't happening in the high schools. It just isn't, because in high school, you have practice for, a month and a half, and then you start your season, which is 2 months long, and then you're done. And then, the coaches go on to coach other sports because that's how they make their money. They don't have a wrestling team practicing 11 months out of the year, 12 months out of the year. So these kids have found these clubs to go work in, and that's why they're improving so rapidly.
Yeah.
And our level of talent is unbelievable right now.
I agree with about 80% of that. I agree with all the positive parts of A, youth wrestling is better. B, clubs are having a big part of it. The C part of, I'll agree with the part that high school is a short season. They start practice November 1, most states, most time the season starts December 1, and most of the time they're done by Feb 28. Okay. I have a ton of friends that coach high school wrestling.
Okay.
That do it 12 months of the year, that coach their kids 12 months of the year. And as a person that has a voice, a national voice, I don't want to whitewash them. You're right. There's some people that are coaching 3 sports and they're just doing it to build up their pension, and they don't really care about any particular sport. They might care about kids. I'm not saying they're bad people,
Sure.
but they're not spending time to be an expert in one sport. Okay. For example, like my friend who wrestled for me, Cornell Robinson, who just took the Wyoming seminary job. He took off 2.5 weeks a year from coaching wrestling. So he's coached 48, 49 weeks of the year.
Okay.
There's a lot of coaches that do that. Maybe not to his extreme, but are coaching through Fargo. Like they may take off August, September, October. And you're right. Those are times when clubs are going on. Like, we're probably going to touch on this. My Border Brawl event's coming up, and there's some kids that aren't wrestling in it because Super 32 is the next weekend.
Sure.
There's always something, right?
Yep.
But I think the part, and I'm just going to pick these 2 guys out because they're super accomplished. And I'll mention somebody else too, but like Jared Lawrence, Brandon Paulson, Ben Askren. Those guys 30 years ago never would have coached kids wrestling. Okay. I should say those guys at that level, that wasn't happening.
True.
Okay. And now they are. And so now like you're getting coached by a world silver medalist, or when you're 9, like, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but they're probably know more about wrestling than the guys that were coaching 9-year-olds 30 years ago.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's why. Anyway, okay, let's jump into the world championships. And I don't know, I'm going to switch it on you. We talked about this, but I'm going to switch it up. Let's talk about the less than good news first and finish with the good news. Okay, so we'll talk about Greco first. So I have a chart here. 55 kilos, we placed 9th. We didn't place at 60, 63, 67, 72, 77, 82, 87, and 130. Took 18th as a team. Far and away, the highlight was Tracy or D'Angelo Hancock winning the bronze medal. So I watched this quarterfinal match, I watched the semifinal match, and I watched this 3rd place match. First of all, I'm going to go first on this. I watched Hancock a couple of years ago, literally screaming his lungs out, trying to help Kamal Bey win a match at the US Open in Vegas. And this was pretty long ago. And I probably should have known who Hancock was, and I didn't. I'm like, who is that guy? Like, just his passion. He wasn't even wrestling, like, and like Kamal's like his brother. And just so I've met a lot of people that have worked with Hancock through USA Wrestling and through Black Wrestling Association. He has probably committed himself as much as anyone in terms of being willing to train overseas. He's adjusted his style. He was like a big go for broke guy early. Like he was a highlight reel. And then, but he wouldn't beat the great guys because those guys have great defense, and he's learned how to manage the game. I really thought he got hosed in the semi. I don't know if you saw that match.
Yeah, I did. I thought
they put him down. He came up and he literally put the guy to his back, and they didn't give it to him. And that was the difference. We could get into all sorts of game theory about whether you should go down first or second in Greco. It's different than the shot clock in freestyle, because in general, no one scores on the shot clock. It's just who gets which point first. In Greco, you score from parterre. But I know this personally, and then I'll give you the floor. I wanted to win state really bad. And my freshman year, I didn't. I didn't deserve it. I didn't train right. I shouldn't say I didn't train. I didn't cut weight right. I didn't deserve it. I wasn't the best guy. I didn't commit myself to it. And I won a match. I beat a guy that was a state runner-up in Illinois, 18-17 at Greco. And that was in Illinois, had 2 classes, and it was AA, and you recruited Illinois. You know how good that was.
Yep.
And he was a weight class down from me, but I had no idea who he was. And it was Greco, and it was like some tournament where like your mom's coaching you because my dad was out of town. But when I won that match, it took my dream of being a state champion to I can do it. And my next 3 years in high school, I went 104-1. And the only guy that beat me, I beat the next day in the finals of the same tournament as a sophomore, and then ran the table, literally won my last 100 matches in a row. So that was a tipping point. That was a catalyst for me. And probably 6 people were in the gym, like this was like, so Hancock, I believe now he stays at that level, right? I mean, Greco's a bunch of 1-point matches, but he's going to stay in that hunt. He's been knocking on the door so many times, and his just pure joy. If you just love people that wrestle, you couldn't help but just be almost moved to tears for him.
Sure. Yeah, and he's going to be the reason if we do take off. I think he is going to be one of the reasons we do, if that's possible to take off. I just don't know right now. I mean, we're just so far behind all these other countries in
Let's
Greco.
deal with the big picture. What were your thoughts about Hancock?
I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he should have won the semis. I love his spirit. I love the way that he performs. He has dedicated his life to this sport, and you can see it. He wears it on his sleeve. So, how could you not get excited about that? And I would have loved to seen him wrestle for a gold. I think he deserved it. But I think his time will come. Like you said, he's not going to go backwards. He's going to keep getting better. So, yeah.
And he's young.
He's
young. Like, I think like low 20s, like 24, maybe, give or take. So, he's got and he's super
probably
physically.
got at least 2 more quads, hopefully.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's what you would hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
One for sure, but hopefully 2.
Yeah. And just, it doesn't, I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. He's so much better. He gets to sit to the world team trial finals. Like we talk about this in men's freestyle. So we need to point, you can roll your eyes, and you're right. Like he's light years ahead of all those other guys at that weight. But what that does allow him to do besides that is he can go now, there's like a training phase and a learning phase in your life, right? He can spend more time on learning phase, whether it's tactics, whether it's strategy, whether it's specific things like when you're down by 1 with a minute left, like how to get to a tight hold where you at least have a chance to score. You're not just in the hand fight and people keeping you at distance, where he doesn't have to spend up like, I got to go win 4 matches in this tournament. Like, look, the top 3 guys are all got to wrestle each other, and I've beaten them all numerous times. I can't just disregard them, but I can spend more time trying to improve myself as opposed to trying to beat these guys. Sure. So it's important. Quick summary. When we talked about the men's freestyle tournament last week, we did not know James Green had placed. And so that when we did our team score summary, that was what threw us off. John Kozak from Flow Wrestling wrote a great article. I literally texted him or DM'd him in the middle of the night, and he explained that. So that's how the team ended up second. And that's how it came down to the Snyder Sajalayev match. Yep. But we talked about that a bunch last week. We want to give the women their due. So I'll go in weight order. 50, we take second. 53, we didn't place. 55, third. 57, first. 59, fifth. 62, second. 65, third. 68, third. 72, DNP. 76, first. So what that adds up to is 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 3 thirds, a fifth, and 2 not places. The women take second to Japan. The men take second to Russia. If you combine freestyle, men and women's, America takes first. It's like 2 seconds beat a first and a fifth and a first and a ninth, or whatever the case may be. So I will say this real quick, and then let's focus on the women. Willie Saylor was banging the drum on this and other people, but he had a good point. How can the Russian Wrestling Federation win a team trophy when they don't have a country, and it's because of cheating? Like, it's literally nothing happened, right? Like, they just change these guys' uniforms. They play a different song on the podium, and they just get to compete. It's like the worst slap on the wrist ever. I don't even know if I don't know if that merits a conversation. It's just a frustration, right? And we podcast for USA Wrestling, so I think it's okay to literally be angered by this and be like, look, our athletes are tested. We understand that Mark Ostrander represents the XYZ RTC and David Mirikitani represents the ABC RTC. But we come together, we put on that Nike singlet, and we have USA on our chest. And, I'm sure Russia's doing the same thing. They're training in different pockets, but they've cheated. I don't know if you ever watched it, but I told you about this.
I did watch it.
Is it fair to say if you don't know what's going on with doping, they need to watch that documentary Icarus on Netflix?
Without a doubt.
It's crazy, right? Like it's old. So most people have seen it's like 5-6 years old, but it's crazy. Anyway, the women. Let's start with the gold medals. Helen Maroulis and Adeline Gray. They both get falls in the finals. Gray was losing. And I think like sometimes you watch her and she doesn't open up that much. And she opened up in the second period and then got her kind of a weird scramble and just froze her and just walked her over nice and slow for the fall. That's got to be great redemption after, silver medal at the Olympics, but now a world champion. She now has more world championships than anybody in America ever. And Maroulis wins the gold medal too. Let's start with the two gold medalists. What'd you think?
Gray, the move you're talking about, the young lady shot in for type of a high crotch. She was able to drop her hips a little bit, and then she just basically ran her over to her back, took her out of bounds, pulled her kind of in. But yeah, she just keeps doing what she needs to do to win, Dave. And that's, what you have to do in this sport, obviously. She's a great leader for the women's team. I think the other competitors look up to her for what she's accomplished. So it's not really nice to see her do that. Kind of like on the men's side, I think most of the competitors really look up to Jordan Burroughs for what he's done for the sport. So, those are really cool things. And then who else were we talking about?
Maroulis had to take that and ran that bar arm. And that girl came after her in the finals. Like Helen spent the first minute just fighting off like a really good attempt at a go behind and lost the first point on a shot clock, but kept her composure. Obviously, she's super skilled. She's probably the first women's wrestler of this generation, I think, that captured sort of the old guard's attention. Like she's super high skill level.
And we see a lot more of that here in the United States, David, with the bar arms and the the little halves that we run when we get on top and do some tilt. You see the Americans doing that more than some of the other countries. And I think that has to do with our folk style and, what we were taught when we were younger, and we do it in high school and middle school and, even in college when we're not wrestling freestyle. But these moves work in freestyle. There's a lot of collegiate moves that we do that work in freestyle. And she picked one up from her coaching staff. And before I forget, Mark Perry did a phenomenal job with his squad that he had out there at the women's tournament. So hats off to him. I think he ended up with a champion, a silver medalist, and a bronze medalist. Am I correct?
Yeah, he did.
So
we got a special cool guest joining us that we're going to finish this up, but we've got the legend jumping on here with us, connecting his audio. So Tony Hager, I realized this podcast has my name on it, but it's only Iowa people that come on here with me. It's Ostrander and Turner and Tony. Tony, we're finishing up the women's real quick, and then we want to talk about what you got coming up. Give us 2 seconds. So Hildebrandt takes second, and that's right off of her third place finish at the Olympics. And then
I believe, Dave, that was a winnable match for her. She lost 5-3. I thought she was in the match. I thought, I think the more she does this, the more time she gets out there in that kind of competition, she's going to start winning some of those really tight matches. I really believe that. Yeah,
and Miracle bounced back from a disappointing Olympics for her, 1 and out to make the finals and take second. And then Jenna Burkett takes third, still obviously mourning the loss of her mother. It was an awesome story. Mensa Stock takes third, and we also take third at 65 kg. So just, and again, so now those women are all set for the world team trial finals. Maya Nelson kind of lost a heartbreaker at 59, but just really well done by the ladies, and gave people a lot to cheer for. And, Mensa Stock kind of got caught in a weird cradle. And then when she came back even for third, like she sort of did, she did the hard thing. You could tell her heart really wasn't in the match, and she started kind of slow, but she bounced back. And it must be nice to be so good that third in the world is disappointing, right? Like to just
Well, the thing is, though, when she was interviewed, David, I didn't see it as being she was disappointed. I think she was happy that she was able to come back and compete and get, it's something that a lot of coaches say, win your last match, get what you can get. That's the thing. If you don't do that, then you're going to be really disappointed. But if you come back, we know kids that have lost in the first round of a tournament and come all the way back and get third, you're just as proud of them as you are the kids that won it, because that's hard to do. And she was able to come back, and she was grateful for it, which is really a neat thing, and I want the younger people that are starting the sport and doing this to understand that, it's not always about being first. It's about fighting through things and getting the best that you can get out of it.
As a coach, I always thought it was harder to take third than take second, because when you take second, the whole time you think you can take first, right? And when you take third, there's at least two matches where you can't. There's a bunch of stories coming out of the World Championships, but I just want to point out Kyle Snyder now has 3 golds, 3 silvers, and a bronze, and he turns 26 years old in November. He's going to be on that Mount Rushmore before it's said and done. I mean, he's really like right there now. That's crazy. Like we were talking last week about John and Bruce and Jordan, like he's going to be there too. So, quick shout out before we jump on to Tony. 2 of the guys that I'm good friends with did really well at the IBJJF World Championships. Matt Collum, for Iowa Central National Champion, took 3rd in the Brown Belt Worlds, and Michael Pixley, who we were the first guys to get him a gi, just mopped everybody up at the blue belts, won his weight class, won the absolute, a beast of a wrestler out of Granite City and also out of Blue Springs, Missouri. All right, so now we get to introduce the voice of IA Russell, the voice of Hager's Happy Hour, the creator of Night of Conflict. And I literally Googled this, apparently saved a guy's life a couple of years ago. So I'm like, I just thought I was talking to a guy about wrestling. Tony Hager, what's going on, brother?
Hey, morning, guys. The rest saving a guy's life, that's kind of a little bit of a joke in my neighborhood. Kind of forgot about that, but it got blown, and it's like the news, so like they blow it out of proportion, right? Like, I mean, the guy was in floating water, and I pulled him out. A short dude pulled him out. He could have got out himself. He just there's a funny little side story to that, but he's good.
It's good to have on your resume, right?
Yeah.
And if like you forgot you saved somebody's life, like that's a normal Tuesday, then you probably have good karma. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about, we're going to lead up to something, but one of the things you've done, and I've picked your brain on this, is run events. We've been lucky enough to, hopefully I've added some things, certainly learned a lot from you, but you ran the Night of Conflict a couple of weeks ago, ran a bunch of matches. You've done this for a while now, and you're also running this on Rockfin. So maybe give people a perspective. I know I do this and I see it differently, what it's like to run a wrestling event, and then what it's like to do the live stream and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that go behind the scenes to making a successful event. Right. I mean, I'm the one that gets, I guess, the glory, or people see me running around crazy. So they probably just, they see me and they assume that I'm doing everything, but that's not the truth. This event starts, Night of Conflict specifically starts really at Fargo, trying to figure out what matchups we want.
Yeah.
But when someone comes to the event, how's the atmosphere? how's the experience from when they first walk in the door to when they sit, to what kind of beer they drink, to how loud the music is. There's so many little things that drive me nuts when I'm at events. So I've been able to be at events as a fan, as a competitor, as a media member. So I've gotten a good experience at successful events, bad events, and obviously my event needs work. Every single time I have an event, I have to forget about something. But the people around you, if you don't have the successful people around you that want you to succeed, then the events will never happen. So shout out to the people that helped me with Night of Conflict.
Yeah, I ran my event, the Missouri Border Brawl, the first time back in 2015, and we tied it to the Nationals, and we were raising money for Randy Couture's foundation, the Extreme Couture GI Foundation. And one of the things, we ran it in Union Station, which was a really cool venue. And one of the things, that I think we've both talked about, and Mark's talked to me about it off the air, is if you have a cool venue, like you said, if you have cool music, like you said, the beer's cold, all these different things, right? The VIP tables are set up right. You shout out the appropriate people and thank them. People get pictures. One of the things people loved at our event was they got pictures with like the coaches walking around, right? Like their sons and daughters got to meet these people. What's crazy is I'll run into somebody like once a month that'll talk to me about the event. I'm sure you do too. They never talk to me about like the Hager versus Ostrander match. They're like, man, it was so cool. My daughter got their picture taken with John Smith. My son got his picture taken with Tom Brands or Cale Sanderson, whatever the case may be. And with the term growing wrestling gets thrown out around pretty liberally. But I think these events, and Mark is somebody that doesn't do this. If you want to chime in, how do you see these kind of events helping to grow wrestling? And then I'll talk to Tony about it.
No, I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal. I think it's why, wrestling has taken off. I think that's why the women's wrestling now is going to be at the University of Iowa. A lot of states are now, have women's wrestling. I think the more we get it out there, the better it is for the sport, obviously. And that's really all we want, is to build this sport and make it, as popular as, we love it. We grew up with it. There's nothing I love more than wrestling, obviously, but you have to continue to build it. And I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal.
Yeah, the events are the matches themselves obviously are the main events, right? That's what people come there for. But if you can get people talking about just the atmosphere and the event in total, that's when you've succeeded in a match, because they're not at an event. And it's a preseason, postseason events are really ways to just kind of get kids that maybe haven't been in big events, or they've been in big events, but they really need like a kick in the butt for the season to get started here. That's what I've seen this preseason events, that it helps them just kind of like, okay, like I'm way out of shape, or I'm in good spot. And it's an opportunity really to put your name on the map. Like, Border Brawl is an opportunity for kids from other states to compete against each other that maybe didn't see each other at Fargo. And for Iowans, very unlikely that they're going to get to see a ton of people outside of Iowa, just because we have certain rules in Iowa. So in order to maybe for your recruiting side or for nationally ranked matchups, those are huge for opportunities for the kids. But for the fans, I think it's just a good way to like transition into the summer and get us going. And the girls wrestling is just completely different. It's changed the way events happen. It changed the excitement around the event. Our event, we had girls before the boys, and after the event, everyone was talking about the electricity for the girls matches. So that's just great to hear, right? Because traditionally people would just show up for the men and that's it. And maybe if there were some girls matches, they would watch them. Well, people came for the girls matches, and that's just a huge opportunity for girls wrestling, just to be able to be seen, to be heard, to feel like they are the main event, right? When they've always just been kind of like a side I would say sideshow, but like that's kind of what it is at big events. And it's really important. It's important for our event. It's important for future events, important for girls wrestling. So I just blessed to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think UWW does a good job of that because they always put the women's the 3 middle days, so like people can't show up late or leave early, which is great. And I think USA Wrestling does a great job of it with these like junior duels. Like I've had a chance to call the under 15s and then the junior finals, and they're like, it's not like, oh, if you want to do the girls do the girls finals, it's like you're doing the ladies finals and the boys finals, that kind of thing. So one of the reasons I have you on is Border Brawl. Missouri Border Brawl is coming up Sunday, the 17th. And here in St. Charles, Missouri, we've been fighting locations for COVID, but got that pulled together. And this is a real labor of love. We love putting these together. We've been blessed. One of the coolest stats that Jason Keck helped me figure out was this past year in March, the kids that have wrestled in Border Brawl previously scored 150 points at the NCAA wrestling tournament. So 3 of the 4 semifinalists at 149 were there. 2 champions were in it. We just had our first world team trial or world championship finalists with Dayton Fix. So we'd had like the Dayton Fixes, the Jay Nyermans, the Joe Colognes, the Aaron Brookses. A bunch of multiple time All-Americans like Cade Brock, Joe Smith, just a ton of hammers. And, we don't presume to say we have anything to do with their success. Okay. Like I know people say like a kid came in your room for 15 minutes and now you coached him. It's not like that. But like Brian Smith told me from Missouri, he's like, you're doing a good job picking the right kids. So we've partnered with you, which we're really excited about in terms of the live stream, and the matchups are getting posted daily on social media. Just a couple highlights. We've got like Stillwater High School's bringing in 4 kids. Ladarian Lockett, JJ McComas, Angelo Ferrari, and Sam Smith. Couple of those guys got pretty good family bloodlines. So, Missouri's got a ton of hammers coming out like Dragan Arini, KJ Miley, just a bunch of guys that have, multiple time state champions and were Fargo All-Americans. Talk to the people about how IA Wrestle, how you guys are involved in this and the advantage of people signing up to watch this on Rockfin, like how it's helping to grow wrestling if they're not in the St. Louis, St. Charles area.
Yeah, as far as how I got involved with you guys, Grant Turner put us together with Nike Wrestling. So shout out to Turner and Nike Wrestling. They have done a ton behind the scenes for the sport of wrestling, and this is just another situation where Grant's been able to, understand what relationships would work. So iWrestle comes in, we have streamed a lot of events. In the past, there's 2 companies that you could really kind of go to, or you have to figure it out. We're hoping to get in these bigger events that showcase some Iowa people. iWrestle is also in Nebraska and Minnesota. So we're exploring other states to go into. And Bill Gockel is a guy that has been producing events for us now for a few years. He's produced a couple of events also. He did Mob and Media event past weekend in New Jersey. He helped Illinois state tournament. So, anything from tournaments to high level duels, we've been producing them. Bill's been an integral part of that. And with Rockfin, it's really, it's brought wrestling media people together, or content creators, to where we want other people to succeed, because when they succeed, our value goes up, and it's ultimately the value of the subscriber goes up. So if you subscribe to, say, Night of Conflict on October 2nd, you can watch Border Brawl on October 17th. And same if you subscribe on Sunday to watch the event, you're going to get every event across Rockfin for the next 30 days if you just want to do 1 month. But there's some huge events coming to Rockfin. The national duels are going to be there. Yeah. Iowa, Penn State, that's coming up in 2 months. So the value for $10 a month to get all these different content creators is there. It's been needed for a long time, to where content creators are helping each other. And that's really been the biggest reason for success. Is we're not trying to like cut each other out. We're not trying to slit each other's throats by like, hey, don't promote that event. Don't do anything with it because that's not our brand, blah, blah, blah. Rockfin has been able to create that,
So
that synergy within wrestling.
yeah, and probably the biggest, I shouldn't say biggest, but one of the more well-known creators in Rockfin is Willie Saylor. And so as an example, Willie wants people to watch the Border Brawl because it grows the value of the whole network. And there's white paper that explains all this, and we certainly don't want anybody to glaze over, but we're excited to be partnered with you guys. Streaming is something that we've always wanted to do. Like you said, there were really two players in the game before. And when I did, when I was doing the rankings and stuff for track wrestling, obviously, as a person loyal to who I was working for, we would post it there. But it was a different model. If people had track gold, they got it. And then if not, it was a pay-per-view. And at a certain point, people are just tired of spending $14.99 here and $9.99 there, and that other stuff. And now it's like, okay, like you said, and you don't pay it yearly, but it's like $120 a year for all this stuff on Rockfin. You can, and there's other sports on there. There's political stuff on there. Obviously, it's almost like YouTube where you can. Well, I'm just saying, like, people need to understand, like, there's stuff, if you don't care about anything political, you just don't flip that channel on. If you want to look up what happens after Super 32s with the rankings, you go click on Willie's channel. If you want to look on what the next event IA Wrestle is doing, you go there. So we're super excited to be partnered up with you. We'll see if Fellers makes an appearance. I don't know if he's famous or infamous. We need to get him and Ostrander in the room together because he does an Ostrander impression. I don't think it's very accurate, but it cracks him up. So tell the people.
If they're making fun of you, David, if they're making fun of you, you must have done something right in your life.
Yeah, they're paying attention, right?
Right.
You have to be relevant. Otherwise, nobody makes fun of somebody they don't know anything about, for sure.
And I tell Fellers, if Fellers is making fun of you, that means that he's testing you. He's testing to figure out how much you can handle. And if you can if you can handle it, then hey, you're in his circle. But if you don't, if you back away, then
I have to thank Fellers. He gave me one of the winners win shirts, and I got it in Mark's size. I still have to mail it to him once I get through this, but but he walked right up to me at Junior Duels, and he kind of joked to me. He goes, "I know you know all these Oklahoma people, but here you go." So
hey guys, I got a question because I had not been on Rockfin yet. Hopefully I get this set up so I can watch the Border Brawls. But if you sign up for it, and maybe you guys can explain this, can I go back and say I have to go to work that day and I missed the duel and I'm a member, can I go back and rewatch it?
Yes. So specifically this event, it will be one long stream, and the matches you can watch the whole event back in its entirety. So
Okay.
you can get all the commentary in between the matches. And then about 3-4 days after the event, we'll have individual match archives as well. So it's not just a live only pay-per-view. There will be archives, which is really nice. Some events do have, they'll do the individual match archives. It's on the content creator. So like, I don't work for Rockfin. Consider it like there's all these YouTube creators, right? And they have specific channels. So my Rockfin channel could be completely different than PA Powers or Willie Sailors or Illinois Matman. It's all on the content creator to be able to provide these services, whether they do or don't want to. So I don't want to speak for anybody else, but for Missouri Border Brawl, we will have the event up as soon as it's over with. You can go back to the middle, fast forward it, rewind, do whatever you want. And then about, by the end of the week, we'll have individual match archives up. So you can just search the wrestler's name and you can find it pretty easy.
Yeah. And we're relatively closing in on time here. So I want to say selfishly, this is the only time I've ever promoted anything for myself on USA Wrestling's on our pod, but we donate all this money to either veterans with amputations or underprivileged wrestlers. And IA Wrestle is helping us do that by doing the live stream partnership. So if you can't come out, please, even if it's for 30 days, buy the Border Brawl through the IA Wrestle channel. How do they do that, Tony?
Best way is to go to rockfin.com/IA Wrestle, or you can go to bit.ly/IA Missouri Border Brawl. And you can find it on our social media platforms at IA Wrestle. It's on the Missouri Border Brawl Facebook page. So we'll have tons of stuff out there as far as finding the link. We'll have a link at iawrestle.com too. But David's right. If you subscribe to this, we're supporting what David and everybody is doing with the Border Brawl. It's an event, but we're trying to raise money, right? So it's a blend of two great companies coming together to help veterans.
For sure. And I'm not good at a lot of stuff. So to work with somebody who is really great. This has been, we have to do certain things to make sure you guys can do what you need to, but to not be worried about that has been amazing. So just to chance to publicly thank you, Tony. It means a lot to myself, Jason Keck, all the other people, like you said, the people behind the scenes that are making this possible. So I know you're coming into town Saturday. I literally talked to Randy last night. He was in London and now he's back. And I think we're going to try to get him in town for it. So it would be fun, to have him there in person as well. We got to get Ostrainer down next year to do the play-by-play for us. But at least he'll be watching on Sunday and we can talk. We'll probably talk about it on Monday. So
hey, maybe we could bring Fellers down. He could do the play-by-play as me.
We're trying.
We've told Fellers, we actually offered that to him, but we said it might be too hard for him. It'd be too intellectual. So, all right. So Tony, thanks for jumping on. Our time is up. I want to thank everybody for watching, listening, sharing. Go to Rockfin IA Wrestle channel. Get the brawl. We appreciate. Much love, everybody. We'll talk to y'all next week.